Good afternoon and welcome into the Hook 'em Hoops podcast. My name is Jason Kinander. I'm without my co-host Tommy Yarsh today as he is on vacation, a much-deserved vacation for Tommy, if you will. But I'm here in Kansas City covering the Big-12 men's basketball championship for Texas Student Television. Super excited and happy to be here. I'm going to run through a quick preview of the games today, preview of Texas's action, and then our usual predictions segment. Now, this will be obviously a much shorter show because I know people don't want to sit here and listen to me talk for too long. But tomorrow, I'm hoping that for our recap episode, I'll have lots of sound from the Texas locker room. The access here in Kansas City is fantastic at the T-Mobile Center, and so should have a great episode in store tomorrow. Leading off our action yesterday, we had UCF and Oklahoma State. UCF steamrolled the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Wasn't at all surprised by that. The Knights looked pretty good. Ibrahima Diallo, who has performed well in some of the Knights' biggest games this year, looked great yesterday. He had a career-high 17 points, also chipped in 11 rebounds for his fourth double-double of the season. And then in the late game, Cincinnati against West Virginia, that one was really right down to the wire, with Cincinnati pulling off a 15-point second-half comeback against the Mountaineers. Day-Day Thomas and Seamus Lukosius were the real superstars for Cincinnati, and I'm interested to see what else the Bearcats are able to accomplish this week. They play Kansas today. It's a banged-up Jayhawk team. There could be the opportunity for a team to make a run on that side of the Big 12 bracket. And so Cincinnati likely needing at least two more wins, including the Kansas win, in order to be on the right side, just in contention to be on that bubble on Selection Sunday. Playing against Kansas is obviously a win in this case for Cincinnati, given the injury situation. Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson both out for the Jayhawks. Longhorns are coming into the Big 12 tournament playing some really good basketball. They steamrolled OU last Saturday. They didn't look too good in the second half against Baylor last Monday, but they led that game for about 70% of it, and you could argue that if they didn't get into foul trouble, they probably would have won that game against the Bears. And so Texas playing good basketball. They're as healthy as they have been at any point this season, and I think that is something that is really important to note. Texas started this year with Dylan Dessou and Caden Shedrick on the mend, and then Dessou came back and Shedrick was banged up for over a month. Now Shedrick is fully healthy. Texas has its full array of weapons at its disposal here in in Kansas City. And so it will be very interesting to see if the Longhorns are able to make a run this week. They play Kansas State today at 6 p.m., and this is a K-State team that Texas was able to handle when they came to Austin a month ago. Now, that was a sloppy game. Both teams shot under 40% from the field. Both teams shot under 25% from three. If that continues today, it's not going to be a very enjoyable game to watch. But I do think that Texas will fare really well against the Wildcats because it's a team that they're familiar with. It's a team that they match up well against without very much size. And with the point guard matchup with Max Asmus and Tyler Perry. And just all in all for the Longhorns, this is a bracket in the Big 12 tournament that they can advance in. I mean, if they beat Kansas State, who they've already beat this year, they'll play Iowa State tomorrow on a neutral court, which is the really big point, on a neutral court. Iowa State beat Texas in Austin over a month ago in a game that they had control of for over 80% of it. But I think that Texas will fare better on a neutral court because on paper, the matchup against Iowa State is fantastic for the Longhorns. It is fantastic. But today's game against Kansas State needs to be won to even get to that point. A couple of matchups that are key for me. I think that Tyrese Hunter is going to play a huge role for the Longhorns. He had 30 points, 7 assists in a big performance against Oklahoma in the final game of the regular season on Saturday. Look for Tyrese to build on that today. Should be a good matchup for him. He's going to be guarded by Cam Carter, who can be a good defender at times, but Tyrese Hunter was guarded by a good defender good defender in Otega Owe on Saturday and was still able to put up his best performance of the year. So I think that Tyrese Hunter is really hitting his stride. I think that he's playing some great basketball, and I'm really excited to see how he looks in today's first game of action in the Big 12 tournament, coming off of his strongest game of the season. Now, Dylan Dessou obviously is a key as well. He is apparently fully healthy. Obviously, he played against Oklahoma with no restrictions after leaving that Baylor game with a non-contact leg injury. Dessou, for all intents and purposes, is fully healthy. And for me, that's big because he was one of the only Texas players who shot the ball well when they played Kansas State last. The matchup against Arthur Kaluma, who is a talented offensive player for the Wildcats, but I don't think will be able to have much success on defense against Dessou and against Texas today. This is a good matchup for Dylan Dessou. I think that he's going to put up over 20 points. Hopefully we see him take three-pointers. He led the Big 12 in three-point percentage midway through conference play, and for whatever reason stopped taking threes. And that's just bad practice for Texas and for Dessou. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I want to see Dessou take at least 4, maybe even 5 three-pointers today because he's going to make at least 2. And for a Texas team that's very streaky from beyond the arc, it's very streaky shooting in general, they will 100% welcome that from Dessou. Max Abmas playing in his first Big 12 tournament. This is a favorable matchup for him today against Tyler Perry. Another small guard, one of the only guards that Max will face all year who is actually shorter than him. And so that'll be a good matchup. He did not look good against Kansas State the last time the Longhorns played. It was kind of at the beginning of his prolonged shooting slump last month where he was finding his shots, but he just wasn't making them. And that was sort of the fact of the matter when Texas played Kansas State. So now with Abmas being a little bit more in his stride, he didn't really look great against Oklahoma either. He had more of a silent game, but the few games before that, he was really in his bag, 33 points against Baylor. If we have a similar performance today, Texas is going to be a tough out this week. Now for Kansas State, I'm interested to see if there's going to be any chippiness in this game with the way that the last game ended last month with Daidai Ames throwing that. It wasn't much of an elbow, but he had the incredibly dirty, flagrant foul on Kendall Weaver. I'm interested to see if there's going to be any chippiness between the two teams today. And maybe that's something that we would welcome from this Texas team who, sometimes you just wish that they play with more intensity. Sometimes you just wish that, they have more energy, that the players who are on the court are playing to their highest potential. And so I think that today we could see that if it gets a little chippy. And, this is March. This is when it matters the most. This is a tournament that Texas traditionally performs very well in. They won the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City in 2021, and they won the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City in 2023. And so Texas will be out looking to defend their Big 12 tournament championship. They need to win 4 games in a row, and that all begins today against K-State and the Wildcats. I am going to go right into my predictions segment before I talk about a couple more of the Big 12 games. Again, it's going to be a super short episode today with not much post-game sound available yesterday from the Texas players. There actually hasn't been a media availability with Texas outside of a Zoom call with Rodney Terry yesterday. There hasn't been any media availability yet, and so that's why I'm really looking forward to the post-game access today, being able to get some stuff for the podcast. So I think that today's game is going to go very well for Texas. Again, I've said it 3 times. This is a team that they've already beat. This is a team that they match up well against. Texas happens to be playing some really good basketball at this time of the year. And so I'm going to take the Longhorns to win this one in a little bit of a blowout. I think that Texas is going to control this for the vast majority of the 40 minutes. I think that they're going to pull away and win by more than double digits. And I think that we're going to have a massive game from Max Abmas and another good game from Tyrese Hunter. I'm excited to see what Texas is able to do this week. I think that last year, even though they were the 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament, I don't know how many people expected them to go into Kansas City and win that entire tournament. And so not a similar team for Texas this year, but a little bit of a similar circumstance, being safely in the field and now just needing these 4 wins to really advance their seeding. Speaking of seeding, let's talk about that for a little bit. I think that right now we can all agree that Texas is firmly on that between 7 and 9 on the seed line. If they win today and then lose to Iowa State, they're probably a 7. If they lose today, they're probably a 9. I feel better about the 7 seed for Texas than I feel about the 8 or 9 seed, because I feel like some of the potential 2 seeds Texas could at least run with. The 1 seeds are what I worry about. Now, the whole thing with the March Madness is you want to play the best teams. If you're crowned the champion, you want to have earned it. But there are certain teams that Texas just can't beat, that they just can't match up against. Purdue's one of those teams. UConn is one of those teams. If their matchup earlier this season was an indication of anything, and so Texas will want to move past that 8-9 seed line. They're going to want to be a 7 seed. Be a more favorable first-round matchup as well. I've been seeing a lot of FAU in the 8-9 game for Texas. That would be a nightmare with the size of the Owls and them being able to score at all 3 levels and the way that they attack the post. Would not be a good matchup for Texas. So for the rest of the games in today's Big 12 tournament, the first game at 11, going to get ready to go there pretty soon, is BYU at 11:30 actually. It's BYU against UCF. Super impressed with the Knights yesterday, albeit it was against a pretty crappy Oklahoma State team. I think the UCF can keep this one competitive. They've played BYU very close this season. I'm very interested to see how Ibrahima Diallo follows up yesterday's performance. And this will come against a bigger BYU team. Oklahoma State's only true big was Brandon Garrison. And now he'll be facing a BYU team that has a lot of size in the low post. Ali Khalifa, Noah Waterman, just 2 of the many names that will be going up against the UCF Knights today. And so I'm interested to see how Diallo looks. The Knights also have a lot of 6- and 5th-year seniors, guys who will be fighting for their college careers today. And so, excited to see that intensity. The 2 p.m. game, we have OU and TCU. Excited for this one because whoever loses this game is very firmly on the NCAA tournament line and cut line. And whoever wins this game is very firmly in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion. I want to see TCU win this because I think that they can be a Cinderella-type team in March, a deep team with a lot of veterans who has good wins on the season. I just keep thinking about that 3-overtime win on the road against Baylor. Fantastic win, one of the best wins in Big 12 conference play this year. But the Horned Frogs have also had some of the worst losses, one of those coming at home against UCF on Saturday to knock them right at the cut line of the NCAA tournament. We'll see how they look against Oklahoma today. 2 teams that aren't playing great basketball, but 2 teams that have some veterans who are going to really want to step up. I can't wait to watch TCU's Emmanuel Miller and Travian Tennyson. Both are seniors who will be looking to put their names in the NCAA tournament for one more year today with a win against Oklahoma. The 6 p.m. game is a game that we already previewed, K-State and Texas. And then I think game of the day is going to be the late game, Kansas and Cincinnati. Like I said, Kansas is banged up. 2 All-American caliber players are out for the entire Big 12 tournament. Cincinnati will have a lot of momentum with the way that they won their game yesterday. And so I'm very excited to watch this one. I've got the Bearcats outright. I think that they're 2 wins away from being back in that NCAA tournament picture. They know that as well as we do. Kansas probably just looking to regroup this week. Obviously, they're going to try and be competitive and win the Big 12 tournament because they're such a prestigious program. But with the injury situation, I just don't see it happening. There are 6 teams right now who have better odds from Vegas to win the Big 12 tournament than Kansas, and that's because they see the same injury situation that we all do. And I agree with them. There's no stinking chance they win this Big 12 tournament without Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. And so that'll do it for my Big 12 tournament preview today and for my Texas game preview. Thanks for stopping by to watch. I know it was a shorter, more abbreviated episode today, but for tomorrow's episode, regardless of win or loss for Texas, I'm hoping that we'll have a lot more post-game sound from the Longhorns. And, I think that that's going to be a great aid to the show. We're not used to being able to have locker room access, covering the Big 12 tournament here for Texas Student Television, and being able to have the locker room access after each game is fantastic. That's how college sports should be, in my opinion. It's good exposure for the athletes. They're all happy, all willing to talk, and so I'm looking forward to getting some sound from that Texas locker room, regardless of the win or the loss today, hear their post-game thoughts. If it's a loss, we'll hear their thoughts going into the NCAA tournament, and if it's a win, we'll hear their thoughts going into tomorrow's prospective game against Iowa State. Thanks for joining me, guys. Hope that everyone is enjoying this March basketball as much as I am. Be back tomorrow for another episode during this week's Big 12 tournament. But see you later. For Hook 'em Hoops Pod, I'm Jason Kinander.